Welcome everybody to Wrestling Memories episode 36, The Kliq. And hey guys, I hope you're having a great day. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon, because that's the only way YouTube will let you know if we're going on live, even though they don't do it sometimes. Anyway, welcome everybody. Glad you can make it out. As always, I have with me today is JP and the tattooed mistress. Well, she's somewhere around there. I don't know. What's going on, JP?
Not much, man. Just Heather's cooking dinner. I'm here. How's it going? Hopefully, it looks like it's working. Great. All right, because Skype's fucked up for me right now, so I can't see the chat. So, everybody, Bobbit is monitoring if you have a question. I hate to do this, but Bobbit, keep your questions. If somebody has a question, just wait until we're done talking about what we're talking about, and then we'll answer the question. I'm going to make one administrative note. We will be doing our predictions for the Super Shit Show tonight. There are 10 matches. We'll get into that at the end of the show. And then we'll get ready for Raging Inc. So, just thought I'd throw that out there real quick. I hope everybody's having a great day. Let's talk some fucking wrestling memories. The Kliq. Excited.
Okay. Anyway, and we have with us today, as always, the foul mouth, Mike Bobbit. Just kidding, JP. What's going on, Bobbit?
Not much, man. Just watching the Brewer game, and yeah, let's talk Kliq.
All right, and as always, I am your host, Johnny Sinister, and let's get into the Kliq. So, this episode I thought was very, very, very interesting. Probably one of the more interesting episodes of the show. The Kliq was a group of guys in WWE, and it was mainly consisted of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, X-Pac, well, he was the 1-2-3 Kid before then, Shawn Michaels, and Triple H. Now, at the time, Triple H was the youngest member, or I should say the newest member. And he was a young guy. He played a more blue blood aristocrat. All right, almost kind of think like Damien Sandow, almost kind of character. Very aristocratic. But the thing is, Triple H came in wanting to learn, and he really got in good with these guys.
Yes.
And the one thing I thought was interesting is they talked a lot about the politics backstage in this episode, and during that time, Vince wanted guys that would come to him and give him the ideas. And, well, essentially, that's what the Kliq did. And so, what we had a scenario of is that these 5 guys were always in the top spots, which pissed off a lot of people in the back. But, as Shawn Michaels so eloquently put it, if you didn't go to Vince, you were pretty much being a chicken shit.
Go ahead.
Which I found very interesting. It was very interesting to get their take on that side of things.
Yep, it was. I enjoyed the episode, and they did, and they made mention of it. Shawn Michaels did a promo on it on a Monday Night Raw. They did run the fucking business. They did. I mean, they were top guys, but they were justifiably top guys.
Right.
That's the difference between then and what's going on now.
Well, and then too, like I said, like what I thought was interesting about it it wasn't that these guys were intentionally trying to bury everybody else. It was just they went to Vince.
Yep.
That's essentially what it was.
But they were also idea men. They threw their ideas out there and they went with it. Now, I will say this, we'll get into this later with the DX thing. Vince didn't want them to do that. But then they just badgered the fucking shit out of him. He's like, fuck it, don't do it.
Until he basically got tired of it and said, okay, go, just don't burn the fucking house down. Kind of deal. Now, this was before the war really got good and going. And then you have arguably one of the most iconic moments in wrestling history. It's also probably one of the most controversial moments.
It broke down that wall, that fourth wall.
It was called the curtain call.
The fourth wall.
If you haven't seen the episode, I'm going to do a rehash of what's going on. So Triple H and Scott. So basically, what happened is at this time, Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, their contracts were coming up, and they were going to jump to WCW. Now, a lot of people got mad at them and tell them they sold out WWE, but on their reasoning for it, they were trying to provide a future for their family.
And the reason being is they received guaranteed contracts. At the time, WWE didn't give guaranteed contracts. If you didn't wrestle, you didn't get paid.
Right. And then, so realistically looking back on it, I mean, we'll get a little bit more into it later, but Kevin Nash and Scott Hall really changed the business, arguably for the better for the performers, because of that kind of stuff. Now, we'll get into it a little bit because there was also some shenanigans that went on.
Right.
But overall, in hindsight, they wound up making it the business better for the wrestler.
Right. And Earl, it didn't kill kayfabe. You think it killed kayfabe. You allowed it to kill kayfabe. They didn't kill kayfabe. If you didn't know that it was fake, there's something wrong with you. And what I mean is that if you didn't think... Because think about this. These guys are all backstage. They only had one fucking locker room, okay?
Right.
Do you really think that they couldn't actually work together? Because sitting there and thinking about this, they were friends before they were enemies at the end. So think about it. It didn't break kayfabe. People allowed it to break kayfabe, like Jim Cornette, fucking saying they ruined the business. What the fuck ever? You shut the fuck up. You whiny little fucking cunt who wants double cheese, double mayo, double onions on a fucking burger.
Well, it's interesting you brought that up. So basically what happened, going back to setting up the scene for those that may not know what the curtain call is, I know most people will, but just in case there's those that haven't, this was essentially their Scott Hall and Kevin Nash's last night on WWE. And Scott Hall and Triple H had a match, and then at the end, it was a cage match between Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash.
Right.
And what happened is towards the end of the match didn't end, actually. Shawn Michaels super kicked Kevin Nash. Scott Hall, who at WWE at the time was Razor Ramon, comes out to the ring, and then here comes Triple H, and they hug, and they give the infamous hug in the ring.
I thought they did in the match. You just didn't see the end.
I don't know if they did or not.
They did. He pinned him. He pinned him.
He did pin him? Okay.
He pinned him, and then he did the curtain call.
Yes.
So, everybody that was there, they did it in Madison Square Garden, of all places, which is kind of like WWE's holy ground. I mean, we just saw, maybe about 6 months ago, that they were trying to keep other wrestling promotions out of Madison Square Garden.
Right.
This is like their sacred ground. And so, Stephanie McMahon kind of put it, ironically, probably put it at the best. She was sitting in the audience when it happened. She goes, "Oh my God, these guys are exposing the business, or they're giving it all away." But part of her was going, "Hey, this is really cool. They're giving it away."
Which is, and you know that people have got to realize that the third wall had already been broken.
Fourth wall.
No, the third wall had already been broken. So it was gonna happen. Either way, it was gonna happen. There was nothing that they could do about it. I already knew that because how could they go from being bitter fucking enemies or being friends to being bitter enemies? These guys, it just didn't make sense.
So now, to your point, JP is on the side of, you know, it didn't kill kayfabe, and rightfully so. I mean, there was nothing. When I went back and watched it, I didn't see what was so bad about it. However, a lot of people were pissed off.
Like Jim Cornette.
Jake the Snake. Somebody that I was shocked that didn't like it was Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yes. However, once it was broken, I mean, Jesus Christ. Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon are really good friends.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
People literally, for some reason, thought them two hated each other. They did not. It's just that people bought into the characters. If you buy into the characters, does it matter if they break kayfabe? Does it matter?
Well, I think, I definitely see your point. But I can also kind of see why, I'm on the fence about it. Well, honestly. On one point, I'm like, I'm kind of like how Stephanie McMahon was. At one point, at one part of me is kind of like, well, who fucking cares? It was a cool moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was a genuinely cool moment, and it got a lot of reaction. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, well, Scott, the bad guy is hugging the good guy. So I can see why some more traditional, because, and everybody has to remember, back then there was no internet.
Right.
So, and there was no, there were dirt sheets back then, but the quote-unquote smart crowd was very limited back then. In fact, Madison Square Garden was essentially the smart crowd.
Right.
And so, they did it for the smart fans.
Yes.
Realistically. And that's who they did it for.
Correct.
But at the time, now if they would have done something like this nowadays, I could I would be like, well, who fucking cares? I mean, kayfabe's a dead thing anyway.
Correct.
But back then, kayfabe was very much still a very real thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my stance on it is, as a smart fan, I'm like, holy shit, that is a really cool moment. But sort of the traditionalist in me, which if you guys know me better than anybody, I value good storytelling.
Absolutely.
And so do I.
And I really value the magic of what kayfabe once was.
I can understand why people would think that. And yes, Ric Flair and Sting. I thought they literally hated each other when I was a kid. But then when they work together so well, you kind of think that they kind of have to do... Because these guys could seriously hurt each other. This is when I started figuring it out. And whether or not Jim Cornette likes it or not, I figured it out as a teenager, to be honest with you.
Most of us did.
I knew for a fact that these guys had to work together.
And there was so much trust there.
That's the word, trust. In order to trust what they were doing inside of that fucking ring, they had to be able to work together. So I know for a fact, and yes, there are some real real heat between some superstars, but for the most part, there's not.
The really good feuds that you see, like the Samoa Joe and AJ Styles feud, really good feud, really decent matches.
Because they're best friends.
They're literally best friends. These guys have been working together for 20 plus years.
Yep.
So, Bobbitt, what's your take on the curtain call? Did it really matter that they broke kayfabe, or should they have stuck with the tradition?
See, I didn't even know about the curtain call until like a few years ago. Like, it wasn't a widespread thing. It's like you said, not everybody had internet back then. It wasn't as widespread as stuff is now. But I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that one. Just I think they should have stuck with the thing.
The kayfabe? You think they should have stuck with kayfabe? I think it's kind of a mixed bag, really, because everybody needs to remember we're looking back into the past.
Yep.
When we look at this kind of stuff, so we're looking at it from our knowledge of what we know of what happened since then.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's why I'm on the fence about it, is because I can definitely see why it shouldn't really matter, and the points are valid. But there's also some valid points of the keeping the kayfabe thing real, especially for back then. So we get into, of course, we've gone over this several times. Scott Hall, Kevin Nash go to WCW, and then Shawn Michaels is kind of left to carry the reins, only he was very ill prepared for it.
Yes.
And I think it's good that they spent more time talking about WWE in this episode, because we've already heard what was going on with NWO and the issues that happened with that nobody could get paid more than in Nash's and Scott's base salary, or they have to up the salary. We all know this kind of stuff already. We've talked about this stuff. In fact, it was one of the first episodes on Wrestling Memories.
Yep.
And so we've talked about this side to death. So I'm going to focus more on the WWE. So if you want to go on our take on how the NWO was and what Scott Hall and all that, go back and watch the episode where we talk about the NWO, and you'll get an idea of how we'll kind of hit points on that. But we're going to focus more on the WWE side of things, because this is really where Shawn Michaels was dealing with a lot of his demons, which they don't come out right out and say in the episode, but it was essentially drug use. And he was working on a bad back, all this stuff. And a lot of people, especially nowadays, because we're in a generation now that doesn't even know about what was going on back then. They more grew up in the era of John Cena. We've got people that are like that now, that they don't know, they've never heard of Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or Mankind. They get that these guys were big, but they don't know them like, somebody like myself or JP, Bobbitt. Bobbitt's really gone back and had to watch, stuff that we experienced. We got to experience it as it was happening.
Correct.
And so there's I think there's a real difference there, that what a lot of people that think Shawn Michaels is so great, especially the younger audience, is that he was a real fucking jerk back then because of his issues.
And because he was a druggie. He was a druggie. He was self-medicating. That's why he was a big prick.
And Triple H even gave some insight to it, is that, part of it was he was kind of bitter.
Yes.
And there was talk of Shawn Michaels going. I remember that. Shawn Michaels, the talk about Shawn Michaels going to WCW.
Yep.
There was a lot of talk about that. But the one thing I could say about Sean, he stuck with it all the way through the end. And even in his back, so in, I believe it was in '98, he got injured.
WrestleMania 14.
WrestleMania
That was
14.
'97. He got hurt in '98. Or he got hurt in '97. I think it was December, wasn't it?
Right. It was sometime. It was during that period of time. It was during the 83 weeks that WCW was leaving WWE in the dust.
Correct.
And so Shawn Michaels was trying to carry the company at that time, and he just wasn't up to it. It reminds me, in fact, there's a superstar nowadays that it kind of reminds me of, only not if you cut out the drug use. So then it was. Now, during this time, though, this was also the formation of DX. Or was that before? Was that before or after he got injured?
DX was formed before he got injured.
DX was formed before he got injured.
DX was originally Chyna, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Rick Rude.
And Rick Rude. So they're going, and like JP had said, which I thought was funny. Because if you look at how it is nowadays, if you go to Vince and then you just do what you want, you're likely to get fired. And to JP's point earlier, Triple H and Shawn Michaels basically hammered fucking Vince McMahon to death to the point where he just didn't give a fuck anymore and told him to go do it.
I don't think anybody goes to Vince because they're afraid they're going to get fired. I think what I'm trying to say is the guys today are so afraid to come up with an idea of their own because of what's happened with like a Rusev or a Lana or whatever. I think it's about how you go about asking or throwing an idea out there. I don't think that Shawn or Triple H were like fucking, hey, if you don't fucking do this, I'm gonna fucking go somewhere else. No, that's not the way they did it.
Right. They kept pitching the idea because they really wanted to be a team.
Yes.
We're also
they wanted to work together because they were best friends.
We're also forgetting one thing. It's not just Vince that they have to go to. They also have to go to the board of directors now too, because now it's a public company.
Because it's a public company, it's a totally different animal than it was back in 1995, 1996, 1997, and up to when 2008 is when they went public. I think we
right. Yeah, it was somewhere around there. No, I think it was towards the end of the war that they went in public.
No, because Trexler said 2008. They went public in 2008.
Oh, okay. So DX is formed. These guys are doing their shit. And DX was really kind of the counter to the NWO, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I really wanted to get to this question.
No. Go ahead, man.
Fuck off, man. No. So, we know what happened with the NWO and that they started adding a lot of members.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really watered it down and made it, not as illustrious as it was.
Okay.
Whereas I felt DX did it right. They kept their numbers small.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is a hypothetical. If the NWO would have kept their numbers small to maybe 4 or 5 guys just like DX, do you think that a lot of the problems that wound up happening would have happened? And we would still, the NWO wouldn't have ever gotten as watered down as it did? Or do you think that there's no other way that it could have progressed?
I think they probably would have lasted longer. I don't with the creative card thing. I don't think. I still think to this day that NWO would have ruined, because they had it. It was Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Hulk Hogan. They all had their own creative control cards. Now, if would they have used them? I don't think Hulk Hogan would have. He was more of a, because Hulk Hogan understood the business. So he was more like, that Hulk Hogan was one of those guys that if it made sense, and Eric Bischoff talks about this, Bruce Pritchard talks about this, and this is why I say, guys, go listen to those shows. I'm telling you, they give a really good insight into what happens behind the scenes, or what's going on. Am I right or am I wrong? I don't know if you guys have been listening to them, but
no, I've been listening to it, and this is my thing about the whole creative control all thing. I agree with you. Hulk Hogan very rarely pulled his card, but
he only pulled it once. He only pulled it once, and that was at Bash at the Beach 2000.
Right, and but it did cause a lot. I think that creative control and the way that things were handled did cause a lot of problems, because essentially where ultimately I think WCW really messed up is they gave a few guys a little too much power.
Yes. I can understand. I can see that. Even Eric Bischoff says it. He said, if I could have changed anything, I would have probably never put that in their contracts. What essentially ruined, and you're gonna get into it. Even in this episode, they kind of did. Kevin Nash he was the booker.
Yeah.
And for him, he came out and said talking about the Goldberg thing. If I'm going to fuck over Goldberg, you better pay me a lot of fucking money to do it, because he didn't want to fucking do what they wanted him to do.
Right.
He was just booking the matches. He said it numerous times. Kevin Nash has. When it came to when WCW, when the booking decision, they'd tell him what their ideas were, and he had to make sense out of the matches. That's all a booker is. They don't write the stories. It's the creative control is where they're of their character. It's not over a match. When we're talking creative control, we're talking about their character. And I can understand it. If somebody came to me and said, you're going to drop the title to fucking Gilbert, do you think Hulk Hogan would have said, yeah, I'll drop the title to Gilbert? Yeah, no, he was like, that ain't going to work for me, brother.
Right. But I also think that a lot of times we don't give enough validity to what was going on with some of the guys in WCW. I mean, Chris Jericho has said a lot about it, about what was going on behind the scenes. Booker T, Eddie Guerrero, a lot of people have spoken to it. So this has become when it comes to what happened with Nash, Hall, and Hogan, and how things were run in WCW, I break it down like this. There's what Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and Hogan believe what happened. There's what Chris Jericho, Booker T, and all those guys on the undercard believe what happened. And then there's the actual truth.
And
the truth, I hate to say it, I don't think we'll ever really know.
I will say this. Bruce Pritchard has said that Hulk Hogan never used his creative card. Eric Bischoff has said he's never used his creative card. Vince McMahon has come out and said he's never used his creative card. Jim Cornette has come out and said he's never used his creative card. So that being said, those guys were higher ups in the company It's just people shit on fucking Hogan because, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm probably gonna piss a lot of people off. People shit on fucking Hogan because he held the fucking title all the fucking time. It made sense for him to have the title. Yes, they could have. Look, Goldberg. I'll use this prime example. Goldberg never wanted. Do you know why Chris Jericho never got a shot at fucking Goldberg? I think we might have talked about this.
Right, Goldberg didn't want to fight him.
Goldberg did not believe that Chris Jericho could beat him in a match. Could not legit beat him in a match. I guarantee it, Goldberg would get his circles run around on him by Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho was 15 times the wrestler Goldberg was.
And that was a lot of the problem, is that, and I think that was a lot of the problem, is that, you know, that you had superstars that, well, it doesn't make sense, so why are we going to do it?
Yep.
You know, when in reality it did make perfect sense for some of these things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So getting back to on the other side of things, Shawn Michaels finally takes off for his back injury. It's left to Triple H. Now at this time, X-Pac, his contract's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets basically fired from WCW via FedEx.
Right. Before we go into that, I do want to go back to him. He did say when he said his contract was up in WWF, Vince said, if they can offer you guaranteed money, go for it. Vince wasn't going to hold somebody because he understood why these guys were leaving.
Yes.
If he could have, he would have. And Vince has stated, if he could have kept these guys, he would have. And there definitely would have never been an NW. In fact, Kevin Nash has come out and fucking said he did not want to leave WWF. Ever.
I think if the money was right, Scott Hall would have never left.
Scott Hall said that himself. If the money was right, he never would have left. But Kevin Nash is like, I gotta look out for my. And Kevin Nash's wife said, no, this is your family. When he said, but my family here, no, this is your family. Which it clicked in his brain. Fuck it, I'm gonna take the guaranteed money. I have friends. I can take the guaranteed money.
Right, Scott Hall probably said it better than anybody, that he goes, in this business you can either have friends or you can have money. And he said, well, I already got a few friends, I might as well have the money.
Right.
And that was his whole reasoning behind it. He was trying to provide for his family.
Correct. It's a matter.
And so, at this time, you know, DX was looking like it was going to fizzle out.
Yep.
And it was up to Triple H to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And arguably, I think it was one of the better times of DX. They brought X-Pac back. They added Road Dogg and Billy Gunn to what I think most people remember of DX.
Yes. I mean, I enjoyed the Shawn Michaels and Triple H, the antics that they did, but some of the best and funniest stuff that DX did with Triple H is with Road Dogg and X-Pac and China. Some of the stories that they told, and it put... We also got to remember the curtain call, and we didn't even touch this. Who was going to get buried? Somebody had to take the punishment. Shawn wasn't going to do it because he was the champ. X-Pac was hurt. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were gone. Who was going to take the punishment?
Let me put this into perspective for you guys. Triple H did not start getting over until after the form, and actually not until after Shawn got hurt.
I mean, he was a little over, But then he really got the fuck over the night after fucking WrestleMania 14, which is where he's going with this.
Yep.
Right, and the reason why I say that if Shawn Michaels would have never gotten hurt, Triple H would have never ascended to what, because Triple H at the time with Shawn Michaels was viewed as the sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
He was never looked at as the main guy.
Right.
And it wasn't until Shawn Michaels got hurt that they really started to push Triple H. Before then, Triple H was getting beat by everybody.
Mm-hmm. He was jobbed out. He was jobbed out.
He was literally, for what, I want to say a good solid year, he was essentially a jobber.
Yep. 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 Right up until about the formation of DX.
And the DX was a result of frustration between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, where Shawn Michaels was frustrated with, Nash and Hall being gone and the pressures of him being champion, and then Triple H, which they don't really touch on it, but I believe around the time DX is formed, he really got tired of being punished for something that happened a while back.
Yep. Nope, you're right.
So
it was Jim Cornette was the one that was fucking punishing him because he was the booker at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so people can say what they want about Triple H, but if there's one thing you can't say about Triple H is the guy paid his, you can't say that the guy didn't pay his dues.
I will go one further to even say that Shawn Michaels has said, it didn't matter if I would have gotten hurt. I think Triple H probably would be where he was.
Yeah.
Triple H
Why?
was that good at what he did.
Triple H was essentially, put it in perspective, because Shawn Michaels even said it, the guy, all Triple H had to do was see it done one time, and he got it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Who else do we know was very much like that?
Kurt Angle, Ronda Rousey.
Triple H was essentially the Kurt Angle before Kurt Angle.
Mm-hmm.
Big Show.
Big Show.
Big Show's another one.
Ronda Rousey, I think, is going to be one.
So, there seems to be a correlation between people like this.
Mm-hmm.
If you haven't noticed, the people that are like this, now, the Big Show's a little bit debatable, but I still argue that Big Show had a very good, solid story career.
Yes.
Yep.
I believe I believe they horribly misused Big Show towards the end
Mm-hmm.
of his career. But for the most part, he was right up there.
Yep.
And every person that's been like this has been either way up there on the card or they were the top person at one point.
Yep.
Which is why a lot of people are paying attention to Ronda.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's why I just made mention of that.
Now, granted, Ronda kind of brings a interesting problem though when it comes to that, but that's for a topic for another time.
Yes.
And we've actually talked about this problem. So, Triple H takes over DX. He brings these guys in. And about this time, it just all melded right. Because all around this time, you started getting, Stone Cold was getting, was on fire. The feud was in full swing between him and Vince. You had The Rock getting his stuff in, Undertaker, Mankind. It all just melded together.
Yep. Yep. Totally agree.
Very, very well. That's why it's always so hard, I think, when people talk about the Attitude Era specifically. And the one interesting thing I always thought about is Shawn Michaels always stated Triple H and himself and Stone Cold Steve Austin were essentially the Attitude Era before it was even called the Attitude Era.
It's true.
Their attitudes were already developed.
That's where the name Attitude Era came from.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think the thing is that when we look back at this time period, it just all just perfectly lined up. And I think that's why it's really hard for people to pinpoint who, you can't really put it on one person, the reason why the Attitude Era was such a success.
Mm-hmm.
And why it pulled them ahead is because there was a lot of players in this, but it was the Kliq that I think was part of the catalyst.
Yes.
Right.
Because they played it off between both shows.
Right. And there was even instances where you saw them give the Too Sweet symbol to each other, on their respective shows. Even one, they showed a segment where Nash comes up, he's on WCW, it's like, here you go, bud, and calls out Shawn.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry.
And what's interesting is that the Kliq, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Triple H, and Shawn Michaels really helped elevate their respective brands at that time.
Yep.
Really elevated it. So, and then of course, we know what happens. Kevin Nash starts booking. There's a lot of shit that goes on with that. We've covered this all. In fact, we'll probably get into that even more in the next coming episodes.
Right.
And realistically, at the point when Shawn Michaels comes back after injury, and he goes up against Triple H, I mean, at this point, it's kind of set. The story's been told.
Yep.
At this point.
That is true.
And because by this time, it's pretty much over.
Yeah.
They're doubling in ratings of WCW.
Yep.
Where WCW has the infamous finger poke of doom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, as Kevin Nash explains, was essentially them trying to capture lightning in a bottle twice.
Which didn't work. But then again, Kevin Nash has stated, before people start shitting on Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash was the booker, and I said it in the middle of the show. They were telling him the story, and he had to make sense out of the fucking matches. So he figured, fuck it, finger poke of doom, that's what we're going to fucking do. We're going to try and catch lightning in a bottle twice. In fact, they've said that publicly. They said it in 83 weeks. It happened. It didn't work. So guess what? But that's not what killed WCW.
No.
No. It isn't what killed it. And we'll get into, next week, we're really going to delve into the
Reasoning.
We've been skirting around the real reasons why everything went down the way it went down. We've been mainly talking about all the players involved.
Yep. Which you have
These next few episodes are going to be the real meat and potatoes
Yep.
of what happened.
Yep.
Now, to say that, I will say this. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash did a lot of things to improve the lives of wrestlers that they get today. Because now they all are on contracts.
Yes.
Yep.
Every wrestler can thank Scott Hall and Kevin Nash for that. Because they pushed for that kind of stuff.
That they did.
Triple H. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying they're advocates for the wrestlers, pretty much.
They were advocates for the wrestlers. When it came to this, and when I say you can't really put it down to a specific person, but you can pin it down to who were the catalyst for the Attitude Era. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
With those three, if they didn't have an attitude, you might not have ever had the Attitude Era.
That's true. I can't disagree with that at all.
So you can't pin it down to one, but you can possibly put it down to three people. Because these guys were essentially what brought out. And then what happens is WWE molds their product around the philosophy of these three guys.
Yep. And then everybody else fell in the line, like a Rock and a Mick Foley. And they fell into the... And The Rock just, you know, he got his attitude, and it just went from there. It just escalated the WWE that much farther than it did WCW.
It was the proverbial snowball effect.
Yes.
Bobby, you've been awfully quiet over there. You got anything you want to say about all this?
No, I really have nothing to add, really.
Poor Bobby, this usually happens.
Yeah, he's just listening. Well, you got to remember, he wasn't alive back then, so him sitting
True.
there listening to this is kind of like, oh wow, I'm getting a perspective of wrestling fans. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Because he's getting the perspective of Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. I'm giving you my perspective. I'm trying to give you my perspective on what I seen when I was watching this. And I can't,
Right.
you know. Go ahead.
And I think, you know, I think a lot of the, especially the younger fans, take what we as the older generation has seen for granted, that what we're, because I see it all the time. A lot of people think that what we talk about, oh, well, that's back then, that's utter bullshit, you know, it really wasn't that great, or yada, you know, all this stuff. You can't really understand what the emotion was like unless you lived through it.
Yep.
And I think that... go ahead.
I'll give you a prime example. The Whale. One of her ex-boyfriends was 26 years old. He sat down and watched an In Your House pay-per-view with us, and he's like, this shit's boring. How did you enjoy this? So it's just like, get the fuck out.
I recently watched that interview with The Undertaker.
Right.
And I love one thing that he did say. It's not about the moves. It's about the story and the character. That's what makes it entertaining.
And that's what we're missing in today's WWE. That's what we're missing. What's the story with fucking Roman Reigns? Can anybody tell me what his story is?
There is none right now.
See? Can't tell me what his fucking story is. Dean Ambrose, you could probably...
We don't have enough time to think of that.
Exactly my point. That's what I'm getting at. There is nothing. You have to sit there and think about it. What's the story with Dean Ambrose? You could probably come up with him.
Yeah, story. He's probably the only one on Raw right now that has an actually halfway decent story.
So, I mean, if you're looking at it, what the Undertaker is right. And this is why they keep bringing back these nostalgia acts, because they don't have that in WWE right now. Because none of the guys in WWE, even though that I think they can, they are not allowing them to do it, to be able to tell their character story
You cut out there.
I'm sorry.
No, he got distracted by the baseball game.
Yes.
Oh. You know, my thing is that, and I've said it many times, and again, I go back to what Undertaker says, you can do a double backflip off the top rope, but what are you going to do next week? How are you going to top that?
Right.
Right.
And keeping upping the ante leads to more injuries, more time where you don't get to see your favorite superstar.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, one person I actually wholeheartedly disagree with is Daniel Bryan when he talks about The Miz.
Mm-hmm.
Because just because The Miz doesn't do the shit that Daniel Bryan does makes it a coward. You know, honestly, when he said that, I took that as a slap in the face to everybody that enjoyed the old way of wrestling. Because the way The Miz wrestles is a very traditional style of wrestling.
Yep.
And while some say it's boring or vanilla, what people seem to forget is that what makes The Miz so compelling is not his moveset, it's his character.
Yep.
The person that he portrays. Whether people love him or hate him, that's the point.
Right.
He wants that reaction out of you, which is why I have always stated The Miz, people like The Miz are some of the most underrated people in the business today.
Can agree.
He's definitely one of the better heels of the business right now, too.
Right, because, okay, good example, like this weekend, we're going to get Daniel Bryan and The Miz. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not wanting to watch it because of Daniel Bryan. Now, granted, I'm not going to sit there and lie to you. There was a time I was a big Daniel Bryan fan.
Yeah.
His story up to WrestleMania 30 was very compelling.
And
His original feud with The Miz was very compelling.
And he played the part right. He played that underdog the right way.
Yes, he did.
But the Daniel Bryan that I saw in that Smack Talk promo that Miz did was not the Daniel Bryan of WrestleMania 30. This was a haughty Daniel. This is, I'm a better wrestler than you because I can do this and this. I don't wrestle like a coward. I don't play it safe.
And then he wonders why he had so many concussions.
Huh?
And then he wonders why he had so many concussions.
And here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize this. This is why The Miz has never been injured.
Right.
That's true. Well, he has, but he's not been so injured that he has been out for
over a month.
Months on end.
Yeah.
And the reason why we this has been such a good series for us to do is quite simply the fact is this harkens back to a time in wrestling when from the jobber up to the main guy, you had to tune in and watch.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're fixing to go over the match card for the shit show this Saturday.
Yep.
I can guarantee you, over half the matches, nobody gives a shit about.
Pretty much don't give a shit about the whole thing, but okay.
Right, but back then, from 1996 to 2001, 2002, you dared not miss a damn episode.
Yep.
Did they have hiccups along the way? Of course. The difference is that they quickly rectified the mistake when they did make it.
That's true.
So with that being said, that pretty much does it for the discussion about the Kliq. I know you wanted to go over the match card.
I'm going to say one thing. If anybody, this whole war revolved around the Kliq, if nobody understands that. Think about it. Think about it. Real quick. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were with WCW at the time. That's when the war really started, when they jumped ship.
Yep.
Right.
So, the Kliq was a real big part of the Monday Night Wars.
Essentially, the Kliq was the Monday Night War.
Essentially, yes.
That's true. Alright, so we're going to get into the card real quick. I'm going to run through these because I really don't give a fucking shit about any of these fucking matches.
Nope.
I really don't. There's not one match on here except for a couple that are worth anything. Cedric Alexander versus Buddy Murphy. I don't know anything about these two. I think they're going to take the title off of Cedric Alexander, though. I think Buddy Murphy's going to win this match.
Yeah, they'll probably do Buddy Murphy. And there goes JP distracted again.
Yeah. Base is loaded now, right now.
Asuka and what about you, Heather? I'm sorry.
No, I really don't give a shit about 205.
Bobbit, you there?
I think he stepped away to say goodbye to his dad.
Fucking Christ. He's got to tell me that. Asuka and Naomi versus the Iconics.
Asuka and Naomi. Because it's hometown for the Iconics.
Johnny?
Asuka and Naomi don't really give a shit.
I'm going to go with the Iconics. I don't want to, but I'm going to go with the Iconics. New Day versus The Bar. I hope both of them die in a plane crash. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't really care about this feud, but
I honestly think they're going to put it on the Bar.
I think so too. I think they're going to put them on the Bar.
Me too. Now the match here, the feud that you were talking about, Daniel Bryan versus The Miz for the #1 contendership for the WWE title.
I think if you don't put it, I think if you don't do The Miz, I think it's going to be a mistake.
Yep.
I have a funny feeling that they're going to go with Daniel Bryan, but I really want The Miz.
Same here.
I think it's going to be The Miz myself. I would be surprised if they have Daniel Bryan win, but Miz ends up doing something to get involved and ends up winning something along the lines. He's going to win the title before.
You think we're going to get a Daniel Bryan and Miz at WrestleMania 35?
No.
For the title?
Nope.
No, I think it's going to happen sooner than that.
I don't think it's going to be a title. I don't think they're going to be. They don't need it. They don't need to feud over the title.
No. Realistically, they should have been feuding over it months ago.
With the Money in the Bank involved.
Right.
But they fucked that storyline, so.
Right. How about, all right. Who'd you go with?
The Miz.
Bobbit. Daniel Bryan versus The Miz.
Miz.
Okay. John Cena and Bobby Lashley versus
Kevin
Owens and Elias. Bobbit.
John Cena.
Johnny?
Oh, what the hell. Elias and Kevin Owens.
I could see them doing that just to get John Cena into a feud with Kevin Owens, maybe get him on the show for a short feud, just to get him back in the ring in the U.S.
Right. I'm gonna go. You aren't gonna beat John Cena at a fucking event like this.
No, one can hope.
You aren't gonna be. These two aren't gonna beat Bobby Lashley. They're using Kevin Owens and Elias as pawns in a game.
Of course they are.
Becky versus Charlotte.
Mm.
I think his dad keeps fucking with him.
I say, Becky.
I think they're gonna hot potato the title, and it's gonna be Charlotte, and then there's gonna be a rematch at Evolution.
Bobbit? No. I'm gonna go with Charlotte. I just think they're gonna fucking take the title off of Becky. The only reason they put it on her is to appease the fans. Now they're gonna take it right off of her.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if Charlotte won.
They have just trolled you, Becky Lynch fans. They've just trolled you. Ronda Rousey and the Bellas versus the Riot Squad.
I don't think it's a question of how many wins. I'm going to ask how many botches.
I really wish he would stop. It's going to be Ronda Rousey's going to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious.
And I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now. I don't think they're going to have Brie Bella doing the yes kicks.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they're going to have her do anything that would cause them to botch. Cause her to botch. They're going to let her just be herself.
Be an original Bella. For once in her life.
Did you pick the Bellas?
Yep. Because they're not going to... just like the situation with John Cena, they're not going to have Nikki lose.
Right. They ain't going to have there ain't no way. AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe. This is about the only match that I really give a shit about.
This is go ahead, Heather. I'm sorry.
Honestly, I could see Samoa Joe winning and AJ going for a rematch. However, I'm gonna go with AJ because the title reign.
They're gonna. Yep, that's what I'm going with. They want to get rid of CM Punk's name at the top of the list. Sorry, I've been saying it. That's what they're gonna do. I think it's gonna be AJ. AJ's gonna retain. I think AJ's gonna end up losing it to Randy Orton.
And as Paige has said, there has to be a winner, a clear-cut winner. So.
Yeah.
What about you, Johnny?
See, this is where I'm torn with this. Because I agree with JP that I think that's what's going to happen, is that Randy Orton is going to be the one that takes the title off of AJ.
Right.
However, I don't see the harm. Well, no, I wouldn't do that. Because I think if you do put the title on Samoa Joe, that he needs a proper run with the title.
Agreed.
I wouldn't want him to be a transitional champion.
Yeah.
I am going to go with AJ because I am thinking the same as JP. However, let me put it this way. When stuff like this, in my head, I'm going with AJ. My heart would like to see Samoa Joe with the title.
I understand that. I honestly, truly do.
So to me, it's too hard in a situation like that because it's not. I like either one of them, and I understand the reasons why they keep the title on AJ. But I would just really love a Samoa Joe run with that title.
Yep. I get it. I do get it. So you're gonna go with AJ?
I'm gonna go with AJ.
The Shield versus I call them the Dogs of War. And you know who they are. It's Braun Strowman.
The Dow.
Yeah. Who you got, Heather?
I'm gonna go with the Shield. Just so it pisses Braun Strowman off even more, going into Crown Jewel.
Okay. Johnny?
Shield with double turn.
Do you think they're going to do it that soon?
I would not be. I would not be surprised.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either. But that's rushing, which WWE is known to do lately.
They are teasing it way too fucking hard. They're not being subtle enough about this.
Right.
That's true.
Let me put it this way. I'll be shocked if they don't.
Right. Okay. Bobbitt, you came back in time for the Shield versus the Dogs of War.
Shield.
I'm not gonna go with a double turn, but I am gonna go with the Shield. It's going to be here's what I see happening. I see Dean Ambrose being in there at the end, and one of the two tagging in, and then Dean Ambrose kind of starting to his fuse starts getting short. Like, I can fucking do this. I don't need your fucking help. Kind of
Right.
attitude thing. So I think they're going to go with it for a little bit. But I think it's going to be the Shield. Without the turn will probably come at like a fucking Royal Rumble or a Survivor Series. Because this isn't one of those that they're going to do at a pay-per-view at 5 o'clock in the morning. And you got to remember when this is happening too.
What picks did I get?
Asuka and... So let's start at the beginning here. Cedric and Buddy Murphy.
I don't want to go through all again.
I'm going with Cedric.
God damn it.
Shut up. Asuka and Naomi versus Iconics.
Y'all already know that one.
I picked opposite.
New Day versus The Bar.
I'm gonna go with the boys, the New Day.
Daniel Bryan and The Miz.
You already picked.
I've done pick that one. I chose the Miz.
And Becky and Charlotte.
I'm gonna say Becky retains, but it's gonna set up for a match at Evolution where Charlotte wins the title.
Okay. Rousey and the Bellas versus Riot Squad.
Rousey and the Bells.
And AJ versus Samoa.
AJ.
Fine. Jesus Christ.
Well, he doesn't talk for ages like you do.
I know. And the match that I really don't fucking care about at fucking all. Undertaker with Kane versus Triple H with Shawn Michaels.
It's gonna be Triple H. It's gonna be the Undertaker, I mean.
Johnny?
I'm gonna go with Triple H.
Bobbitt?
I gotta go with DX.
It's gonna be a double fucking count out.
I'm gonna go with DX, man. I've always been a DX person.
I'm going with the double count out, like I just said. Because Triple H tweeted out, it's gonna be a first of the lasts. We're gonna get a fucking tag team match at fucking Crown Jewel. between The Undertaker and Kane, and Shawn Michaels and Triple H. And I'm not going to give a shit about that fucking match either. And then you're going to have Shawn Michaels. He's going to take on somebody at fucking Royal Rumble. And I'm not going to give a shit about that match either.
Actually, there are plenty of match for him for Survivor Series.
That too. But I'm not going to give a shit about it. So that being said, I think it's going to be a double count out just because they're going to extend this feud. Because WWE can't get their own fucking talent over. They have to rely on the fucking old guys. Sad that they have to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to go with. Because to me, it's a glorified house. It's going to be a lot like the Greatest Royal Rumble. Where they're going to treat it like a fucking house show. They're going to do certain things that they wouldn't fucking do at a pay-per-view. They're not going to change titles. So you might get some sort of screwy finish with AJ and Samoa Joe. I don't know. I mean, I know there has to be a clear-cut winner.
But they've said that before.
Yes, I know. But that's all I have right now. This card, it's just a fucking Raw, Monday Night Raw, a 5-hour Monday Night Raw. Basically. It's gonna be on at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning. That's why the views on this thing will come after it's over. I guarantee it, because nobody wants to fucking watch it at 5 o'clock in the fucking morning.
I know I don't.
I ain't gonna even get up. I might get up at 7 and then start watching it, but I'm gonna watch it from the beginning. So, that being said, that's all I have.
Alrighty.
Heather's doing her show here in a few minutes. So, y'all go and check her out. I'm gonna go grab something to eat. I gotta go to the bathroom. Thanks for being here. Don't forget, next week we're going to start really getting into the fucking meat and potatoes, like Johnny said, of why WCW failed at defeating WWE. And it wasn't because of fucking money, because fucking WCW had tons of it.
Mm-hmm.
Vince wasn't rich. I mean, he was up there. He had money, but he didn't have the fucking money to compete with Ted Turner at the time. When it came to fucking paying wrestlers. So he had to come up with ways to beat WCW, and it worked. And we'll get into that as we start going over how WCW caved to WWE. So at that point, go ahead.
Well, with that being said, guys, as always, thank you so much for coming out up to this week's episode. Be sure to tune in next week. Eat for Wrestling Memories, episode 37. Head on over to Tattoo Mistress channel. We'll be going live here in a few minutes. And as always, guys, be safe out there. Love you guys much. Y'all have a good night. See you in a few minutes. Bye-bye now.